Hi, welcome to Smokin with Swami. I'm Swami Chaitanya.
I'm Nikki Listretto, and boy, we have a special guest today. From right up the hill, Casey O'Neill.
Well, Casey has a farm called Happy Day Farms, but he's also been very involved in California Growers Association and many of our other political activities here. But today, we really want to talk about farming and so on. And so he has on Happy Day Farms, he's part of a program called CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. You want to tell us a little bit about what that means?
It's it's an appropriate day for this conversation. You can hear the birds in the background. The sun is shining. We're finally moving into spring, which is, it's been a long, wet winter. CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, is basically a vegetable subscription service. So people pay us either upfront for the whole season or by the week, and they receive a box/bag of whatever's coming off the farm that week. So we run a very diversified, very broad spectrum of crops so that we can always make sure that there's enough to harvest for the boxes every week. So the idea is to really get people in touch with, seasonal eating. There's no tomatoes in December, but tomatoes when they come in late June, early July are phenomenal. And so it's kind of that idea of really getting people back in touch of what their locality produces, when it produces, and really helping people to be able to, cook and eat and enjoy fresh local produce. We do a weekly newsletter that comes with the box that has a recipe in it and has this is how we're using the produce. We're always eating the same things that are going out with the CSA, so it really gives people the sort of, a connection and a window to the farm, and so that they're able to really participate and have that, again, that connection and that real sense of place and time and the cycles that we go through. So as a diversified farm, we do a lot of cool weather crops in the...
So like what kind of crops, for instance, specifically?
So right now we're just getting going, right? So we're starting a lot of seeds. We're starting kales and collards and cabbages and cauliflowers and broccolis and all kinds of salad mixes and mustards and arugula and beets, and we're going to plant some carrots. So it's, the cool weather stuff is, your brassica, your broccolis and cabbages and stuff, your salad mixes.
Oh.
Yeah, fire up.
I'm supposed to be smoking this joint.
God, Swan. Slipping, I don't know.
So where were we with broccoli and Brussels sprouts?
And so, we sort of break it up. At different times, we've run the CSA year-round, 50 weeks a year, which is... Oh boy, to actually...
I just have to watch out. I'm about to sink into the mud out here. It's like going bit by bit. And soon I'm going to be asked over keister or what's the thing,
Yeah, right. I sent it back tea kettle. I haven't even started smoking weed yet. You can see it's been a wet winter.
So, yeah. I'll just see you all. If I go over, don't worry about it.
Wait, watch it.
No, I'll be fine.
I don't know we're going to be able to cut this stuff out because this is crazy. So meanwhile, we're back with arugula and broccoli. That's the cold weather sports.
Back with arugula.
But you use like greenhouses, hoop houses? What do you use?
We do. So there's this funny technical definition between greenhouse and hoop house. Greenhouse is a permanent structure that requires a permit and generally has heat in it. Hoop house is something quick and temporary that you can throw up. And so we run only hoop houses because we don't want to deal with permitting. So we do a lot of really quick, simple infrastructure. PVC, PVC and 2x4s essentially. Throw the plastic over the top of it. So, a lot of simple, cheap, quick infrastructure, stuff that we can build, we can take down. If you had a time lapse of the farm for the last 7 years, you would see these little hoop houses go boop, 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 and kind of hopscotch all over the place.
So you take them down in the winter so they don't collapse in the snow and rain. And
depends on what we're cropping. At times when we've been running the CSA through the winter, I'm the guy out there in the morning with the broom trying to get the snow off the greenhouse before it collapses.
That's a hard job.
We used to have carports like that.
Exactly. And that's what, these things, a lot of these hoopers are essentially a carport, just quick, simple, just super basic, but also fairly flimsy. And so the last couple of years we have not run the CSA through the winter because, mostly, it's a huge amount of work, but mostly because of all the policy work that we've been doing and all the, all of the meetings and all these other things. And we started the CSA, this is about to be our 7th year. And at first I was like gung ho. We run it all year round. We don't ever stop. And at a certain point you start to, you sort of get to a certain age where you say, wow, I need some downtime.
Yeah, right. Something.
Even the trees, they don't grow all year round.
Some winter hibernation. I got some hibernation this year. So it's, now we're gearing up. So we've skinned up. I have a, like a 10 by 70. I got two 10 by 20s. I got a 10 by, about a 15 by 30. Just a bunch of these quick, simple little hoop houses.
And do you have them on your terraces there? Because I know you have the terrace thing.
Some on the terrace. We have the one big one's on the terraces, and then the rest of the terraces we cover with, we'll just do it super quick and simple. You pound 2 pieces of rebar, one at each end of the row, and you do 1/2-inch PVC hoops every like 4 to 5 feet, and then you run the baling wire around each one so that you have this, fairly stable structure that then you can put some frost blanket over. And they have, they call it a floating row cover, and so it's a spun fabric, a couple different brands. Remade, we tend to separate it by brand. We call the Remade the flimsy stuff, and the Agribon the thick stuff, but they all the companies make all the different versions of it. But the thin stuff is really, really nice in the summer, but it's not very durable. And so, trying to put it on with snow, the snow will just punch right through it.
Yeah. What about rain?
Rain,
does that make it sag?
That's the nice thing. It won't sag in the rain so long as you button it down pretty good with fence posts on each side. And the rain goes through it, which is nice because, for instance, if you do little plastic hoops, then you got to take the plastic off to water it, and et cetera. And so, with the floating row covers, the rain comes right through, and so they still get moisture, so it's pretty minimal interaction with it.
Drip irrigation too?
And
Definitely.
Do you do any cannabis in there or never?
So we'll start, and so we. I'll run it through the sequence, and this will answer both of those questions. So when we start, we prep the beds in the spring, add a lot of compost, some bagged amendments, and then we will, so we smooth the beds out, we lay the drip back down. We've run different kinds. There's the 1/2-inch inline emitter from DripWorks is really, really good. T-tape is really flimsy and kind of a pain in the ass, but it's super cheap. And then there's this newer stuff that's kind of like T-tape. It's like a blend between the two that's called Aquatrax, which is really helpful.
It's okay. The guy in the middle always gets the extra hit. You know what to do.
And so we'll prep. We'll lay the drip back down. We'll put the hoops on with the baling wire down the middle, and then we'll plant salad mixes, cooking greens, cabbages, all these different things. But we'll leave a space for each of the cannabis plants because the spring greens get ready. They're going out. Generally in March, not so much this year, closer to April this year, but they're going out early, and the cannabis isn't going into the ground until sometime late April to late May. And so we'll get the greens in, and they'll start growing, and we'll leave a small, every year I tell myself, leave a bigger space, and then I'm planting stuff, and I'm like, nope, and I planted too close, and then so we get.
But there is companion planting.
Definitely, and so, the goal is that once the cannabis goes in, all of the greens around it, as the cannabis starts to grow, we harvest the greens that are closest to the plants first, so it kind of just notches out and out and out, and eventually, we get to the end of cool green season sometime in June, we clear all that stuff, we do a slight re-prep on the beds, and then we'll plant in summer crops in between, so we'll, figure a 50-foot row, and we'll do 4 plants generally. So there's a plant, and there's about 10 feet or so of space in between them at the beginning, and then they get a little closer, but and it might actually be closer to 15 feet because they never actually touch for the most part unless they get really huge. And so then, we'll pull out the spring crops and we'll plant in, springtime, it's pretty much everything's compatible. All those things work well together. The summertime, I stay away from cucurbits. I don't plant any cukes, squash,
because they get the bugs.
Because they get the powder mildew. And so, because that's usually what kills my cucumbers is powder mildew. And then same thing, for instance, beans get spider mites really bad. And so, I don't plant the beans near the cannabis. And I don't plant any of the cucurbits. And so, those stay pretty well separate. And so summertime, you're heavy, cannabis is a real heavy feeder. So eggplants do really well. Peppers do really well. We've had a lot of success with okra, which is interesting. And part of this is, it's your microclimate. We're up high, 3,000 feet with strong winds and hot and dry. We stay above the fog. So we get much warmer nights down in the valley. For instance, I can't really do salad mixes in the summer because it's too hot. They bolt, they get bitter, they don't taste good. So but I can do hot crops. We can crush it with hot crops. And so we have this kind of interesting dynamic in which Irene, down in the valley, she does a lot of row crops. She'll do salad mixes and head lettuce and these cool weather stuff that can, because the valley gets the cooler nights, they do really well. Whereas, I and she doesn't do production tomatoes, for instance. And up on high, we do tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, like I said, okra, and then, all the cucurbits, the squashes, and all those
We
things.
get really cool nights down here, actually, because we're in this little valley and so on.
And same thing, you guys could probably crush it on head lettuce because it's that kind of stuff. The salad mix tends to get a little bitter, a little more bitter, but the head lettuce, because they get big, they sort of shade the ground so the ground stays cooler, the roots stay cooler, and they make this sort of big mass.
And the pot plants shade the ground too.
Yeah, which is and that's real helpful for things like basil, which they love the heat, they love the sun, but they can get too much sun and they can sunburn, especially like if you're harvesting it, and then what's left can so having that sort of little bit of shade that comes from the cannabis plants is real helpful. And same thing, like I can do a little bit of lettuce, like if I put it really in the shade of the plant, but in general, it's like play to your strengths,
Right,
so
exactly.
I've learned over time.
You're getting tomatoes at that time of the year. It's like outstanding. We never get tomatoes to ripen down here.
No.
It's,
and
they crush it. Tomatoes is one of
hot
our
nights, right?
Yeah,
tomatoes?
they really like those warm nights.
So Casey, wait, let me ask you, when you say we, like how many people does it take to do all this work?
Squadron. So my folks are, what do you call them? Back to the landers. They, Pops bought the land at 75, at 20 acres for $8,000. Not happening anymore. But so
what's your zoning up there?
rangeland. Which it's funny, that sort of touches on that policy question.
We'll stay away from that.
But just 3 years ago, if you said, what's your zoning, we would have,
Right.
you wouldn't have thought to ask the question because none of us were,
Exactly.
so there's all these sort of this new language that we were talking about earlier. That's
we
really
had
starting
Williamson Act when we first got here because they were logging the place when we
Interesting.
got it. So I kind of knew that we were.
Is it still
rangeland.
Williamson or is it?
No, they
No,
canceled. We
they
couldn't
canceled it all.
justify it. Even though we were making money from whatever, we couldn't justify it. So we can't get it anymore. We're back to full
rangeland.
Yeah.
So wait, you're explaining. So they got this land for what? How many
Oh yeah,
acres?
so 20 acres for $8,000. My dad's land payment was $60 a month.
Oh,
So,
whoa.
It's been, so that was 75. They moved up in 82, moved up in May, and I was born in
And weren't their
September.
parents up here too? At some point?
So it was, kind of the O'Neill team relocation.
Yeah.
Grandpa was
It's quite a clan.
bricklayer, steel mill worker down in Southern California, and San Gabriel Valley is where they lived. And 2 years before he was supposed to retire, they fired him without, he lost his job so that they wouldn't have to pay him a pension. They gave him a severance and sent him on his way before his pension, 2 years before his pension was going to come due. So they all had land up here. They bought this land thinking of the potential of a relocation, trying to get back to the land or whatever. And, this was kind of at that time when you were starting to see some of the orange groves disappear and some of the more houses going on. So they moved up in 82, my folks. I think Grandma and Grandpa might have moved up a year or two earlier. That's all a little fuzzy because I was born in 82, so
You don't
I don't have much on it.
Yeah, got it.
So they moved up in 82, moved up in May. I was born in September.
So your mom was pregnant when they moved up. This is homesteading. What was here?
This
How many
is real
houses? What was
homesteading.
here?
They had a one room with a loft cabin with plastic over the windows and a curtain plastic door. And my mom talks about waking up one time in June and saying to herself, what have I done? So it was.
And she's now this big, right?
Did they grow cannabis the first year they were here?
No, they moved. They were just back to the landers. They didn't really, it wasn't that. The idea of like growing cannabis to pay the bills didn't really exist at that point.
Right.
I mean, it did here, but they not in their heads or whatever.
Right.
So they moved up, and the first couple of years were really, really hard. And then at some point, Grandpa, one of the neighbors showed Grandpa like, hey, cannabis plants, you grow them in the woods, great success. So that was, and then.
That's when great success started.
That was the beginning of great success. Right?
Yep.
This
So
is basic
fast
stuff.
forward to '85. The choppers land. In the old days, they would land the chopper, which I think about it still. To land the chopper, and the amount of guys they had for what was a total of 30 plants, probably the most expensive eradication. So it's been very interesting to see, some of the transitions over the years. So, they got camped on in '85. No more cultivation.
Camped on, that means?
What is it, Californians Against Marijuana Planting or something
Right,
like that?
right.
I'm not exactly
state
sure.
program.
Yeah,
Right?
state program,
camp.
exactly.
They got camped on.
So they got camped on, they land the chopper, and so, that was sort of the end of the program. And, Pops became a school teacher. And
oh, I see. So he stopped growing for a while.
Stopped growing for a good while. And it wasn't until, we started to,
the kids grew up.
Yeah,
Like
and Pops retired from teaching and got his medical card and started, growing his personal medical. And then in 2013, we started the collective. I did some time on probation for cultivation issues, and so then when I got finished with that, it was like, well, okay, how do we, what are the rules? How does this work? And so we started the collective. We started doing,
That's Happy Day Farms?
Happy Day Farms, yeah. So the Happy Day Farms is our farm, and then our collective is also Happy Day Farms Collective.
Right.
And so we sort of, the vegetables and the cannabis is all interrelated. So we don't have two separate businesses. It's just kind of all been one thing. And
now you're gonna have to sort that out.
now it's really the whole thing is so tricky.
It's so confusing.
Yeah,
and it's being a diversified farm makes it much, on the one hand, obviously I love it, but on the other hand, it's just so many balls to figure out and so many things to keep in the air, and with the regulations,
Yeah.
So so anyway, Happy Day Farms, we've been we went to the Emerald Cup, I think 3 or 4, we used to judge the Emerald Cup with you guys.
Yeah, right.
We went to the Cup, and Tim was doing a booth, and he let us share the booth, and so
it was epic that year.
It was epic, because the thing with farmers market is that you go to farmers market, you have your vegetables, you have this interaction, this conversation with the consumers, and it's this give and take, and they feel connection, and you feel connection, and it's this completion of a cycle. And we always said to ourselves, if we could do this with cannabis,
really,
it would be incredible, because vegetables, that's nourishment and life and energy, but cannabis is also this sort of higher plane interaction, and the idea that being able to share that with people over the market table, and this is the produce that we grew that we love, and so that was really
that was a game changer for everybody, because what you're talking about is that you kind of, to use a term, strapped on some balls and sold some weed there, and
no, we're reimbursed.
Can I put that a better way?
We're reimbursed by patients for the efforts, time, energy that was put into growing cannabis.
Thank you. You
no
speak
sales.
language much better.
No sales.
That's right.
Yeah, exchange. Right?
That's true. But it was look at it now. This summer, this Cannabis Country Fair that's going to happen. I'm so excited about this. It'll be right here in our neighborhood, and
let's talk about that a little bit, and not in terms of branding, in the sense of. So one of the things about cannabis growers for the last 50 years is you never wanted anyone to know your name or that you were doing it. I mean, that was the best kept secret of all. Who grew this and where, right? Mm-hmm. And then now we're saying, hey, I'm Happy Day Farm. Hey, I'm Swami Select. We're growing up here. And it's and not only that, but we're saying how we're growing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's going to be a real crucial issue about purity and pesticides and so on.
Absolutely.
So that the name of the farm then, we were saying, put a face on your farm. Mm-hmm. Because that's the way things work in America.
Totally. And it's this idea of the name conveys the values and conveys what it is you stand for and your ethos and all of that, and sort of the energy behind the thing. And that was, you're dead on. The conversation has shifted, foundationally in the last 5 years. Mm. And again, you hit the nail on the head. The ability for us to now speak about our practices, one, helps us to better ourselves within the industry, but also really provides an example. Some of the most ecologically sound, some of the best farmers doing the most regenerative work that I've seen are cannabis farmers.
Right.
And so it's sort of lending to the overall agricultural conversation a tremendous opportunity for the future. And we're sort of reaching this point in time where as a civilization, as a world, we're looking around and saying, wow, the industrial paradigm is not working very well for us. And what are we going to do? And I think cannabis and cannabis farming and this diversified potential of really bringing back the small farm holds a tremendous key for our future.
Well, we're getting to the end of this little episode. It's been great talking to you, Casey, and
Much love.
Great. I mean, we're just neighbors here. We're doing this, but this idea that we are now. There's a famous philosopher who said, "Cultivate your gardens," right?
Amen.
And that's really, we have a garden here on this planet, and we have to cultivate it and make sure it keeps on going. And we have to do it, as you said, with regenerative methods and using living soil and so on. And yeah, so I think some of us in the cannabis community are really committed to that, and we're learning more about it every day. That's the other thrilling thing about it.
Yeah.
Cannabis is always teaching us more about life and community and the way the world is growing in nature and so on. So
Amen.
thank
Real
you.
true.
And send
Such a
love to
pleasure.
your brilliant wife, Amber,
Absolutely.
Yes,
who I
okay.
know is so much a part of the team up there. So
Yep.
Okay,
whole
anyway,
family.
Great to see
thanks
you.
so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for
likewise.
joining
Much love.
us, and we'll see you next time.
great
Great
success.
success.
We got it.